Famous last words. You've probably heard some examples of famous last words before. Winston Churchill, who with his dying breath said, "I'm bored with it all." Beethoven, whose final words were, "I will hear in heaven." Harriet Tubman, whose family surrounded her bed as they sang "Swing Low, Sweet Chariot." And the famous last word of former Surgeon General Joseph Henry Green, who was checking his own pulse as he lay dying and then said, "Stopped." That cannot be true. Well, I'm reminded of a scary moment back in Israel when a group of women and men gathered together in a home. It was dark, it was cold, they had the door locked, and their hearts were heavy because their rabbi had just been executed and life seemed to be falling apart. And just then, Jesus shows up and he looks at this scared, lovable group of people huddled in this home, and he says, "Peace be with you." Then he looks at them and he extends his hands, showing them his scars, as if to say, "I get fear. I get pain." And then in Matthew's gospel, it says that later Jesus took that same family of people on a hillside, and there he left them with another important message. And for Matthew, these are Jesus's famous last words when he says to them, "Surely I am with you always to the very end." We may be separated, but we are never alone. And so I'd like to leave you with some questions that you can talk about with your friends, your youth group, your parents, or your pastor. The first question is, what is one way you can be there for those you live with at this time? Just because we live in the same four walls doesn't mean we live together. And so how can you be someone who enters into a space and brings peace? The second question is, how can you be there for those you don't live with? Look, a lot of people are facing this crisis right now. So how can you be somebody who provides support to them? Is there a message you can give or an action you can live? And if you're not sure how to reach out, may I suggest just simply extending your hands and letting them know that you feel it too. The final question is, what is one way that you can be there now for yourself? We all know how important it is to take care of ourselves physically right now, but how can you take care of yourself mentally and emotionally and spiritually? What steps can you take to receive Jesus' promise that he is with you always to the very end? Please think about these questions and discuss them with a trusted person or a trusted group. Maybe if you're like me, that's a youth pastor, and I know they would love to talk about these things with you. Most of all, stay safe, stay healthy, and please stay connected. And now I'd like to leave you with a benediction. May the love of God, the peace of Jesus, and the presence of the Holy Spirit fill your hearts and your homes during this time. And may we rest in the assurance that while we may not know the future, we do know that we never face it alone.